In this episode,
we'll be talking to FPL_Badger about all things Norwich City.
The Fantasy Football Show.
Hello listeners, welcome to episode 23 of the Planet FPL 30 in 30. My name's Suj.
My name is James.
And today we are moving on to the promoted clubs. We have a new correspondent with us who is going to be writing and talking all things Norwich. We have Mark, who on Twitter is FPL Badger. How are you, Mark?
Hello, sir. How are you? Yeah, I'm good.
Nice sunny day today on a Monday, so it's interesting to start talking about some of the promoted clubs, to be fair.
Well, when this goes out on Sunday, it might be pissing down.
Yeah, that's true. We're recording a week out, so we might be wrong. I spoke to you briefly off air before we started recording the show. I am interested because other than Pookie, I have no knowledge of... Tim Krul is one that we mentioned because of his Newcastle days. But other than that, I don't know anything about any of the potential Norwich prospects, so I'm hoping to get some insight into maybe where we might need to look for some cheaper budget options potentially, or what we have to look forward to next season.
Before we go forward, Mark, should clarify, it's FPL_Badger,
There's an underscore.
Isn't it?
That is true.
Because
I
I
think
noticed
there was
there's a few
FPL
badgers
Badger
knocking about.
I think there's one who was inactive, so I think I saw a gap in the market. I think he wasn't using his account anymore, so that's when I sort of steamed into _Badger.
There's a reason, I know what it is, but just for the benefit of the listeners.
Yeah.
Why is this Badger and not Canary?
So basically, it was to do with when we was at college. We sort of followed a group of sort of nerdy style girls around, and they was referred to as the Badgers back in our college days. So this was probably about 20 years ago. So they were sort of creeping around the teacher, and I think this was sort of named to me with one of my FPL sort of rivals once I started to launch a Twitter account and become a bit more active in the community. So it's just a bit of a
Throwback.
logical thing to do, really.
Yeah, throwback to 20 years ago.
Yeah, definitely.
Works for me. How was your FPL season, mate?
Yeah, it was good. I was aiming to smash the 10k, but I didn't quite achieve it in the end. I think my season was quite similar to FPL Pringle, who you spoke to last week or so, where I finished 20k. I was aiming for the top 10k, but couldn't sort of smash it in the end. It was, yeah, without it being outstanding, I sort of plodded along and got a decent score.
Without it being outstanding, mate. 20k is stuff that I dream
For
of.
you, yeah. I told you about these
you've
new
done it
correspondents.
once in your life, mate.
Yeah.
Once.
Yeah, probably never
But
again.
to be fair, if in my rest of my FPL playing history, if I get up there even a couple of times, I'll be happy.
I reckon we got more chance of getting Stephen Toomey to Watford than you finishing in the top 20k.
Well, that's a probabilities thing. But there's a chance of both happening next season.
I got off to a great start. I mean, in game week 1, I had Sergio for it when he was captain. Got 82 points that week.
Wow.
Christmas time was brilliant because I was on Rashford, Pogba, and Son. So I think I had 3 great weeks over Christmas. I had, I think, a 74, 82, and a 74 again. So there was 9 green arrows between game week 18 and 27, and then it sort of tailed off a little bit up until the sort of the chips came into use, and I followed your strategy, the chunky chip one. Game week 34 wild card, and obviously then the bench boost and the triple captain. Bench boost got me 122 points, and
that's
the triple
decent.
captain. 104 points with the triple captain, which obviously I put on Mane for the 39 points. So yeah, it was a sort of a bit of a topsy-turvy one. Sort of got a lot of points in the middle, then it tailed off sort of February, March, and then it picked up again. So like I say, just a little bit disappointed couldn't smash the 10k, but that's just being greedy.
Yeah, true. And there's always next season. That's the thing I like about FPL. As soon as 1 week's over or one season's over, you can keep going and keep going. And the past doesn't really have any impact on what's going to happen in the future.
Absolutely.
Was that your best rank, Mark?
No, well, my best rank was in, what are we now, 16, 17 was my best rank. That was 10,110. Then I had, I think it was about a 95k season before last, and then obviously this one just now. So yeah, three top 100 finishes anyway.
In a row, which is nice and consistent, and yeah, definitely what we want in correspondents who are going to smash it.
Let's talk about Norwich, mate. Firstly, welcome back. How are you feeling about it all?
Thank you. Yeah, it was. I mean, looking forward to it. I was until the fixtures come out, but I'm sure we'll touch on that very soon. Yeah. I mean, last season couldn't have gone any better because there was absolutely nothing to suggest what happened. Was going to. We'd sort of sold the family silver, got rid of Maddison, Angus Gunn went to Southampton, Josh Murphy went to Cardiff. We sort of got rid of everyone really. And the year before even, Josh's brother Jacob obviously went to Newcastle. Oliveira, he was frozen out. Pritchard went to Huddersfield. Redmond went to Southampton. So there was absolutely sort of nothing really to suggest we was going to do what we was going to do just by blooding academy players and German guys who had been rejected by their clubs in Germany really, none of which we'd heard of. And then, so I think we finished season 17-18, and if you incorporate that into the start of the season just gone, we only won 3 of 20. So some of the football we saw was, it was pretty poor in all honesty. So we weren't particularly looking forward to the start of this season.
Yeah, it kind of came from nowhere. I mean, not the first side to do that, and won't be the last. But I mean, mentions there all them players that left.
Yeah,
you forget their best player, Maddison.
Yeah,
they lost last year.
Yeah,
so there was no real expectation on Norwich to be one of the ones that would push through this year. So how did it come about? Because the side's quite settled, right?
Yeah, very settled. We didn't change the team for 8 games towards the end of the season, and the only reason we did was because Buendia stupidly got himself sent off when we was 4-0 up home to QPR. So Farker does like a settled side. Mm-hmm. Once someone gets in there and takes their chance, he won't swap it about. So he's not going to be influenced by the fans or the media, because obviously, even though we was winning games, our bench was really strong. People like Leitner and Closer couldn't get in the team, and these are sort of full internationals. Probably they should have been in the team, but because we was picking up points and winning games, the likes of Kenny McLean, Ben Godfrey stayed in the team and just couldn't find a way back.
You scored a lot of goals last season as well.
And conceded a few.
A few, but we'll touch on that after. But
well, this is it. And it was the total opposite to the year before, because the year before we was quite poor to watch. The games were quite boring. And it got to the point where, it wasn't like a Chris Hughton style boring, where he was setting his team up the last time we was in the Premier League to not lose. So I remember we was playing teams like Southampton, West Brom, Newcastle at home. We probably should have been going for it. We never did. And as a result, by not winning them games, that put us in an awful situation when it came to the end of the season. Farker, his initial tactics and style of play when he first took over were even in September or October, whoever we was playing, we were setting up our team. But it wasn't not to lose, it's just we didn't really have anything clinical. The strikers were wasting chances. A lot of the play was really slow, and it wasn't enjoyable to watch. I remember it was in the September of his first season, So in 17-18, and it was 0-0 at home to Burton Albion. And I remember coming out of that thinking, I've never seen sort of such a boring game, really. I mean, and it's funny because the next night, my mate who's a Spurs fan said to me, I've got spare tickets to come and watch Tottenham Dortmund at Wembley. And do you fancy it? Because his dad couldn't go, his dad was stuck somewhere. And I was too bloody right to do. I've just sat there and watched 90 minutes of Norwich Burton, which was goalless. So I fancy going to Wembley to watch Spurs, and that was the night Spurs won 3-1. I think it was 3-1. They got off to a fine start anyway.
Son absolutely blitzed them on the counter.
Yeah, that's it, yeah. So, yeah, obviously, you know, I needed perking up a little bit. So, yeah, I went to that. And, I mean, the highlight of that season, his first season in charge, was a 1-1 draw at home to Ipswich when we scored in the 94th minute. Other than that, there was absolutely, you know, as great as that was, and it was brilliant celebrations, there was nothing in that season initially where we sort of thought we're going to do anything anytime soon. So obviously the jury was out at the start of the 18-19 season where he was under fire. There's no doubt about that, because we weren't entertaining and we didn't seem to have a plan really. And obviously in terms of recruitment, we were signing players we'd never heard of. So it made it all the more enjoyable when it came together, but it's still unbelievable really when you think about it. You know, like net profit of 29 million, we've spent £5 million, the total opposite to some of the teams who have gone up. We'd probably say we've achieved it in a similar sort of way to maybe Bournemouth and Burnley when they went up. So time will tell as to how some of these players will cut it. Some of them are definitely Premier League players, and we're probably going to play in the Premier League this year, whether it's with us or someone else. So I think some would be fantastic to watch. Others we'll have to wait and see.
We had our Stato on FPL Canal, and he pointed out that teams coming up from the Championship quite often concede about 50% more goals in the Premier League than they do in the Championship. Obviously, slightly fewer games in the Premier League. It puts Norwich on track, based on last year's record, to concede about 90 goals. Was it a case last season that defensively you were sloppy, or was it once you were kind of 3-0 up or what have you, you kind of didn't care and you conceded a lot of sloppy goals?
We were sloppy. I mean, at the same time, in the 46 league games, we did keep 13 clean sheets.
Let me ask the question. Would you consider, the second part of that is then, would you consider any Norwich defensive assets?
Not for a clean sheet, no.
Okay.
In terms of attacking returns, yes. I mean, in terms of the fixtures, that certainly doesn't help matters, but it would be interesting to see what price. I mean, there's one in particular who I'm very keen to keep an eye out for, and that's Max Aarons. But then it also depends on what price he comes in at, because he's the better option over Jamal Lewis. I mean, they're both nailed on, but Max Aarons is not so wasteful going forward. He got more goals and he got more assists. But then if he was to be 0.5 more than Jamal Lewis, so say he was 4.5, Jamal Lewis was 4, is he worth the extra 0.5?
If Jamal Lewis is 4, he'll be in the squad, mate. Because both of those fullbacks have got a lot of potential.
Yeah, they're great going forward. The only thing is, obviously in the Premier League, they'll be pinned back a lot more than they were last year. But they're a massive part to how we play with the sort of the overlaps and the going forward. So great to watch. Really, I mean, it's like they've played fullback at a high level for all their lives. And you've got to remember that they're still. I think Max Aarons is 19. Jamal Lewis maybe a year or two older, and yet he's an established Northern Ireland international now. So yeah, I mean, you couldn't rely on Norwich for too many clean sheets, but certainly, even the centre half Zimmerman, you know, he's weighed in with a couple of goals, a couple of assists, and he's played more minutes under Daniel Farke than any other player. So Farke clearly fancies him. So you'd sort of say he was our number one centre-half. Again, it sort of probably comes down to price and fixtures. There might be times in the season where you'd look at one or two of them, fixture permitting.
Yeah, I think fixture permitting important. We don't need to get into that run that you've got at the start, 'cause it's pretty horrendous. I would imagine the back four and the keeper would all be 4.5. Would we be right in saying Zimmerman and Godfrey are the best pairing?
Yeah. Godfrey finished the season. He took his chance, funny enough. Tim Closer, I'll get confused with him. Tim Closer, he got injured in the warm-up in one of the games just before Christmas. Ben Godfrey took his chance and then he stayed in ever since. So the way we finished the season, although by trade Ben Godfrey is a defensive midfielder, you'd expect that pairing to still remain of Godfrey and Zimmerman. I think they might well sign another centre-half, and I think they probably need to as well.
Was Godfrey the fellow who had a loan at Shrewsbury?
Yeah, he was from York City.
Against you in the Cup, and he was outstanding in holding midfield role. Yeah, I think you got man of the match.
Okay, interesting.
This is,
There's
we loaned him and Colton Morris to Shrewsbury that year. They didn't win the playoff final. Come back to us. Colton Morris got injured, so we've not seen any of him. And I think he's gone back out on loan to Rotherham for next season. Godfrey. It's interesting because people say he could do a job for us as a defensive midfielder, but I think the way he sort of finished the season and didn't let us down and was sort of very consistent, you'd be sort of thinking, well, now he's gonna. I think as well he's sort of touted around. Man United have been looking out for him, and a couple of the others. As to whether they'll take a punt, probably not. It's probably a bit too soon, but there's certainly something there which sort of you think he could be a centre half.
There's nothing in Farke's mad tactics or setup that makes you think that he could play 3 centre backs to allow the wing backs to bomb on even more, potentially a change for the Premier League.
No,
never seen that.
They've never done that. No, the only time I've seen that is obviously if we're defending a lead. Maybe Farke does like making 3 subs all separately from sort of the 80th minute onwards, just to waste time. And there's a few times where he did do that. We pulled on Tim Closer, took off someone else, but not in terms of starting the game. So I don't think that's something that will happen.
He's 4-2-3-1 all the way, really, isn't he, Mark?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, as well in terms of Pukki's probably our only striker at the moment because Jordan Rhodes has gone back to Sheffield Wednesday. I don't think they can agree a price, but I think it's not just the price. I think it's the wages as well. I think so. I think they're interested, but I think when we get another striker, I think they'll be competing with Pukki. I don't think it'll be a case of Pukki and someone else playing because it just doesn't fit the style.
Talk to me, before we get on to Pukki, talk to me about the three in behind. I'm particularly fascinated, a couple of names that a lot of listeners might not know, is Buendia and Stiepermann. In a couple of games I watched of you at the end of the season, those two look really good. Buendia's you mentioned sort of his irrational challenge against QPR. I remember the game, but he's a very talented player.
Yeah.
And Stiepermann is very unusually elegant for a number 10. He's quite an unusual player because he's so tall, isn't he? He's about 6'3".
Absolutely, yeah.
Very unusual, but he's very good on the ball, picks a pass. And Hernandez is normally the other one, isn't he?
Yeah, them three. Stiepermann and Buendia, I think, are nailed on. They'll certainly be starting. I think the only reason I'd say potentially Hernandez might not is because we've signed Patrick Roberts from Man City on loan for the season. So I'd be expecting him and Hernandez to battle it out for the shirt. Hernandez is a great player, but it is a little bit. His sort of end product isn't quite as good as some of the others, so he's a bit erratic with his with his play sometimes.
I noticed with Hernandez. Yeah, sorry, Mark. I noticed with Hernandez, and I watched it. You had a spell of sort of Friday, Monday night games. I watched about 3 or 4 in a row because it became clear you were coming up. Hernandez strikes me very much as in output is not as strong as what the ability suggests, whereas Buendia and Stiepermann, I think actually could be decent FPL options at the right price.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Stiepermann, for example, is a prime example of what we were saying about buying players from, say, Germany who have been rejected as sort of an under-23 over there. He's come to us as a left-back. I think the year before last he was our reserve left-back. Although he'd played in Germany as a midfielder, and then he's somehow been converted to this sort of number 10 role, which Houlihan previously had. And if you look at how small Houlihan is and the size of Stiepermann, it's incredible, really. Stiepermann, I mean, he got us a lot of goals, got us a lot of assists, and he feeds a lot of the balls through to Pookie, so they link up really well.
They, to be fair, their goal and assist numbers are literally averaging a return every other game, and you take that from any midfielder in FPL. It's whether or not are they going to be priced at a budget level or come in a little bit more expensive because they are attacking and they had returns in the Championship. Do you have any thoughts on what would be a fair price for them?
Well, I don't think we'll see too many of our players over the... I think potentially Pookie could be up to 6 million. Maybe more likely 5.5, but I certainly don't think he'll go to 6.5. Buendia, maybe 5.5, 6. I mean, if he's 5.5, he's certainly an option. Stiepermann, I'm not too sure about. I think he could be 5.5. Hernandez may be the same, but then obviously aside from them, I think a lot of them would be maybe 4.5. But I mean, the 5 to watch really are Pookie, Vrancic, Stiepermann, Buendia, and Hernandez, because the 5 of them were involved in 107 goal involvements last year. So really, it goes through them 5, and we've normally got 4 of them on the pitch at any one time.
Talk to me about Vrancic a little bit, because I've not seen a lot of him, Mark.
Yeah, Vrancic is a funny one because he actually only started 13 games last year, but the goals he got were absolutely crucial to us towards the end of the season.
17 attacking returns.
The goal which won us the league at Villa, he scored that. There was a 97th minute equaliser against Sheffield Wednesday at home.
The free kick, the set piece
double at Leeds. Actually, last home game against Blackburn, there was a long range screamer. So although he's not a regular, massive goals. He got a double at Leeds. So that period of the season was crucial for us, because I remember we had 3 games in end of January, beginning of Feb, where it was always going to make or break our season. We had Ipswich. Although Ipswich weren't doing particularly well, it's still a derby and you still wasn't sure what they'd sort of throw at us and if they'd turn up. We had Sheffield United at home and we had Leeds away. And obviously the main thing is we didn't lose any of them. We would go to Leeds, won 3-1 there. Vrancic got the double.
You were excellent that
Sheffield
night.
United.
So good.
Yeah, we was brilliant. And that's the night where we thought we was, something special was happening here. We're going to do it, really, because everyone was obviously talking about Leeds, and people were maybe thinking, are we in it for the long haul, or are we going to sort of slip up a little bit? We drew at home to Sheffield United. That was a bit of a ding dong. They came to Norwich and actually had a right go, which not many teams did, to be fair. Bristol City gave us a good game, but we drew with Sheffield United and we beat Ipswich 3-0. So that period of season, we battled through that, and then after that, really, that's when we went on such a good run that there was no stopping us.
I think price-wise, defensively, even sort of like Aaron's Lewis, I can't see him being more than 4.5, and I can't see him being 4 either. So I think they'll be blanket 4.5. I think those attacking midfielders, I think will generally be 5. I wonder if Buendia's the best in terms of numbers, 8 goals, 12 assists. I wonder if he might be 5.5 and the rest be 5 and the holding midfielders 4.5. To go on to Pukki.
Just on that, looking back, the only one, I think you're right. The only price that makes me think, will they chuck in one that's a little more expensive, was Sessegnon came in like 6 million, didn't he, last year?
But Sessegnon has such a reputation.
Which was stupid.
These guys haven't in comparison.
Yeah, but they have got the numbers.
But the one who has got the reputation
is Pukki.
He's the guy up front. And I think he'll be minimum 6 million.
See, Mark said 5.5 there. And if he comes in at 5.5, I think a large member of the community are going to be thinking of Jimenez last year, and they're not going to want to miss out.
Yep.
You and me both missed out on Jimenez.
Jimenez was 5.5, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was 5.5, and I think if Pukki's 5.5, people will be equating the two with each other and maybe jumping on Pukki.
But what you got to remember with Jimenez is Jimenez came into the league was largely unknown, whereas this fella's torn it up in the league below. Yeah. And everybody knows. Everybody's talking at Norwich. You said, who do I know? Pukki. I don't know, man. Just automatically
I know some
because
others.
of that.
Chris Sutton.
I think you'll be...
What? Is Jeremy Goss still there?
Goss, I knew you were going to say that.
He scored a fucking good goal. What
That's
did
what
he be in
everyone
FPL?
says.
4.5? I'd have him.
I think Pukki will be at least 6.
Dean Ashton. My favourite Norwich player.
If Pukki's 6, Mark, do you consider him or not?
Yeah, the only problem is the fixtures at the start, because if you look at the 3 out of the 5 first games, we're playing the Champions League winners, we're playing the Europa League winners, and we're playing the Premier League winners. So
easy, mate.
It's easy. That's what, you know. I mean, the only silver lining is we've got West Ham away. And we've got that's in game week 4, I think. Yeah, I am actually.
Come and visit the shopping centre. It'll be a nice day out.
And the carpet.
Yeah. You'll have to message me if you do. There's nothing better than Rib Man. If you like a bit of spice, we'll have a pork rib burger down there together. The thing is, it's the Premier League for you, mate. It doesn't get any better throughout the season. Week in, week out, there's tough games. You go away to somewhere like Bournemouth. I mean, they can score 2 or 3 just like that. Teams like Burnley, very, very tough games. I don't think there's many easy games in the Premier League, regardless of whether it's City, Chelsea, the Southamptons, Leicesters, Evertons. Everyone can give you a good game.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I just hope we don't go to Liverpool and get too much of a hiding where, you know, like some of the players feel a little bit, their confidence is dented straight away. And, you know, as long as we sort of don't get hammered there. I mean, the trouble is a lot of good teams do. So, you know,
we started the season there with a 4-0 defeat. And the thing is, you come away from it, I'll be honest with you, come away from it and you're like, well, that was always going to happen. And you just kind of start your season in game week 2 or game week 3. So I don't think it's going to have as much of an impact if you do lose 3 or 4-0, because you're not expecting to get anything anyway. And everyone's just, well, that was expected. Our season starts next week or the week after. Yeah,
and game week 2 is Newcastle at home. So obviously that's, as it stands, that's how I would look at it, a winnable game, depending on obviously their takeover and who they sign, but I don't think there's no reason why we can't give them a good game. Last time we was in the Premier League, we beat them at home. So and then West Ham. I mean, I'd probably be happy going there and nicking a point or something like that if we could, because even if we got 4 points from the first 5, I think maybe we'd take that. I think we'd have to take that.
I would take that. Yeah, all day long.
The end of the season's not much better either, because we've got to play all them teams again at the end.
Yeah. Finishing with City.
And that was the last time we was in the the last time we was in the Premier League. I think we had a tough 4 out of 5, and you know we didn't have the points on the board, so that's what done us last time. But obviously there are periods in the season where we are going to have to get points on the board, and it would be the teams. You know, Villa, Sheffield United, Brighton, Bournemouth, Palace, Newcastle, where, you know, we're going to need to pick up points. Just like I say, you just hope you don't get spanked off the park too heavily in some of these other games that they're, you know, feeling a bit sorry for themselves, and it affects them.
What's the realistic ambition, Mark? Because I've kind of compared you in terms of how I'm seeing it at the moment. A little bit like with Fulham. and they kind of came up a little bit unexpected, as it was for you at the start of last season. And there are similarities in terms of the amount of goals scored and also, unfortunately, the amount conceded. Fulham's problem was they absolutely couldn't stop what was happening at the back and actually become very limited towards sort of Mitrovic's output and the odd contribution from, say, Schürrle. There's certainly goals spread around that sort of three behind Pukki as well, which I think gives you hope. Is the expectation that staying up is achievable?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think there's any reason why not. I mean, we're not going to spend. I think Stuart Webber's gone on record as saying we're not going to be spending money like Fulham did. I think there's rumours of 20 million to be spent. But if you think, well, we're probably going to need 4 new players out of that, that sort of gives you an idea of how much per player. For example, with Pukki, we're linked with Jay Rodriguez and a guy from Strasbourg. Again, £5 million. And I don't think we'll be spending any more in the defence. Or I think we're going to be looking at a defender, and I think we'll probably be looking at a defensive midfield player to sort of give Tom Tribal a bit of competition. I mean, in terms of Tribal, he's like our Dale Stephens. He's someone who's just going to sit in front of the defence, try and protect it. So he certainly wouldn't be an FPL option. But yeah, going back to Buendia, I think if you take away the fixtures, I think it would be Max Aarons, Pukki and Buendia who would be the 3 I'd be recommending, because it's just such a creative player, and most assists in the league last year. I think it will certainly surprise a few players with some of his sort of stuff, and a lot of it goes through him in the same way that it went through Maddison the year before. He's very involved, and like you said, James, like the amount of assists he got, it broke a club record.
Yeah, 12, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, he drifts all over the place. He 1 minute he's on the wing, 1 minute he's in the middle, but he's in the thick of the action. And his movement is very intelligent. But then the same could be said for Pukki. A lot of his play is through his movement and the running and the sort of the effort, work rate, which sort of goes through the side.
Hypothetical scenario here, Mark. It's game week 2. You haven't bought a backup striker for Pukki and he gets injured. Who, as it stands now, would play up front?
No, we've got a guy called Dennis Sabeni, which...
there's your 4.5 for next season?
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. I mean, you'd like to think it would be addressed long before, the players go on pre-season tour of Germany, that we'll have another striker in. But should we not, then he's your man.
So there wouldn't be consideration of saying playing Hernandez out of position there or anything like that?
No, I don't think it'd be Hernandez. I think it'd be Stiepermann, if anyone. Okay. I think he would be the one who would go a little bit further forward. Sabeni, I mean, he only played the cup games, and although if you look, he had a few appearances, but a lot of them were sub when Jordan Rhodes was either injured or ineligible, against Sheffield Wednesday, say. Like I say, they are quite keen to get the Rhodes deal done, because I think he, obviously the jury's out whether he could cut it in the Premier League. He's not done it before, but I think he's a great person to be around the dressing room, and he sort of is typical of what went on at Norwich last year with the team spirit and the togetherness, and the fact there's sort of no big time Charlies. Everyone gets on really well. You see them win the ball, everyone is high fiving, and the keeper makes a save, they're cutting the keeper. You could tell that they all get on really well off the pitch, and they're all singing from the same hymn sheet. So I think when we do sign a player, I think they have to, fit into that sort of mentality, and how they go about the business at the moment.
No, I know how important
that
is. It's the same at Spurs. We vet people on their personality as much as their ability, and it sounds like it will be the same for you. That's one of the best shots you got, mate. Is team camaraderie. If someone's coming in and upsetting the apple cart, you're fucked straight away, mate.
That won't be happening.
Before we let you go, Mark, just a couple more questions I want to cover off with you. The goalkeeper, Krul. What do you think of him?
I think he's a good goalie. He was very rusty when he, played his first few games of the season because the previous year he was on the bench at Brighton. He didn't play at all. He came to us. I think he only played 2 pre-season games, and that could tell. I remember we actually lost 3-0 at home to Leeds in August. And the transfer window slammed shut. I think it was a day or two before, and he was at fault for 2 of the goals. And I remember saying to the lad behind me, like, we're stuck with this fella now. There's no real competition because we've got Michael McGovern, Northern Ireland keeper, on the bench, but he's not played for in the last 2 years. He literally is there just to sit on the bench, but. The thing with Krul, I mean, there was a few times last year where there was high-profile errors, but I mean, a lot of keepers are probably guilty of that. But he certainly saved us a few points towards the end of the season. And the thing is, the way we play, a lot of our play is slow build-up play from the back, a lot of triangles. It gives you a heart attack, to be honest, to start with sometimes, until you sort of watched it a few times. I'm just glad Sebastian Bassong isn't in the team to the way they play at the back, like it's constantly he'll kick it out short to the full-back or the centre half, and they'll play little triangles. And like I say, I'm just glad people like Bassong are not around to dawdle on the ball.
I remember Seb.
He used to do that even when he wasn't instructed to. So at least now they know roughly what they're doing.
I think Krul's regressed quite alarmingly from the goalkeeper was at Newcastle. That's part why I wanted to mention it. And every year there is a keeper from the promoted clubs who comes in at 4.5 and performs very, very well. I don't think it will be Krul. That's part why I asked the question.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if we sign another goalkeeper for competition because, as I say, he's not got any competition. He's nailed on as it stands. I don't think it would do him any harm. I mean, we've been linked with Joe Hart. I can't see Joe Hart coming purely because of the wages and I'm not sure how he'd fit into
I said
the whole
Krul's
setup.
regressed, not that badly though, mate.
Yeah.
What do you think of the other 2 that are coming up, mate?
Yeah, Villa we beat 4-3 at home. We beat them away. The away game, it's hard to
Last game,
really gauge them because, last game they had the playoffs to worry about. Grealish didn't play, Abraham didn't play. I like what I see. I remember watching them play West Brom. Maybe it was around Christmas time, midweek on Sky, and I remember looking at Villa at the time, thinking they're the best team I'd seen. Then they tailed off for months, and then sort of got it together. Obviously, sort of February, March time. Sheffield United. They'll be very hard to beat. I think we actually lost there. They're one of the 6 games we lost at. We lost 1-0 there, and I mean they'll fight for their lives. Probably got slightly better defence than ours. Might not score quite so many goals, but they've got as good a chance as any to stay up.
That seems the perception, isn't it, with Sheffield United?
Defensively,
exactly
more
what Mark
stable.
Just said.
Yeah,
but won't score as the goals that Norwich will.
No.
Mm-hmm.
Mark, thank you very much, mate. Would you take 17th if it was offered to you now, mate?
All day long.
Good lad. Yeah.
I think that's sensible and realistic.
It's so
season.
competitive because we've said already, unlike in previous years, I think these 3 coming up are hard to call. I think they're all quite evenly balanced. I don't think there's one that really. I mean, going forward, it's them of the 3 clubs that's coming up that stands out the most, but they're also the most concerning defensively.
Yeah, that's the thing. You'll score goals, but they'll concede quite a few as well. I think Villa have got a bit more of a track record and history in the Premier League, so you'd say that Villa maybe have a bit more about the
spending
club
money as well.
potentially. Yeah, that's the thing. Ultimately,
Yeah,
the problem
depends
is
on
that
recruitment, who they buy.
the teams that were caught in the relegation battle last season in the Premier League, most of them will be better next season. So Burnley were caught in it for a while, but they had that stupid Europa League for half the season. Southampton were caught in it for a while, but then they changed their manager and looked much better in the second half. You've got so Saints, Burnley, all are not going to be in it. I only see Brighton from the clubs last year that were in the relegation zone being sucked back in, which makes it a much smaller pool of teams that could potentially get relegated next season, which will make it all the tougher.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm ending it on a negative note now, am I?
Brilliant.
No, but
Well
let's
done,
see. Let's hope Pookie's the one at 5.5 million.
I can't see it.
No, you can't see the price.
No. I think he's capable of scoring goals. I mean, look, they've got him on a free transfer. He's still been banging them in for Finland in the internationals.
Yeah.
35 plus goals.
Out of that 29, there was no penalties either, and there was only one header. So that's
the
probably
pen
worth
taker?
making note of as well. Right, so the pen taker, I don't know if you're aware, we missed 6 out of 7 last year.
Wow.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. No, yeah. So luckily, I think the games we actually missed penalties, that it wasn't in games where
It
we
mattered.
were it mattered. No, we for example, I think it was 4-0 up at Bolton, missed a penalty. Things like, who is the penalty taker? I think it's Leitner, but if he's on the pitch or not is another matter. The problem is it's been shared around. Vrancic, I think he was the only one who scored a penalty. I think he then missed one after that as well. So then Pookie missed a penalty, McLean missed a penalty, Steeperman missed a penalty. They've all had a go basically.
It basically doesn't matter who's got it. We don't want them.
We don't want them.
No, exactly. Farke did. He admitted towards the end of the season it was a problem because it got to the point where they was. But what he said was they was all practicing them in training and they couldn't do any more. If they're scoring them in training but missing it, on the match day, then you're stuffed. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see, but I wouldn't get your hopes up if we get a penalty. Put it that way.
We won't. I think you've assessed well, Mark. The guys to watch is keep an eye on the 2 fullbacks, particularly Aaron's, who's been linked with some big clubs as well. Buendia and Steeperman more than Hernandez, I'd say, and Pookie obviously. I wouldn't be surprised because of Jimenez if Pookie's 6.5, unfortunately.
Yeah.
One thing to note as well is the amount of late goals we scored last year.
Yeah, loads.
We scored in the second half in 39 out of 46 games. And basically we gained the equivalent of 20 points and 23 goals after the 80th minute. So there was about 3 or 4 home games where we scored late goals, and I'm talking like 97th, 98th minute. I remember one game we was home to Forest 3-0 down. Yeah, I think there's a really on Twitter there's a Jeff Stelling clip of like him and might be Bianca Westwood going absolutely nuts because that's it. We was dead and buried.
Bianca Gascoigne's daughter, isn't it?
That'd be interesting viewing. 3-0 down home to Forest, dead and buried, and 94th minute we make it 3-2, and then 98th minute Hernandez scores again, to rescue a point. Home to Millwall, we're losing 3-2. Again, Pookie, 97th minute. Jordan Rhodes 92nd minute. It all came together, and when you're getting late goals like that, you're thinking something special's on the cards.
It's clearly a nice never say die attitude to the club. I think the warning in there is if you've got a clean sheet in the balance against Norwich, don't count your chickens too early.
There you go. Well, look, Mark, we wanted to welcome you to the team correspondence team. We need to get you into the mini league that we'll have for next season as soon as the games open as well. So you'll be battling it out against the other 19 correspondents plus James plus me plus Manchild, probably plus Matt Child as well this year. And is Planet FPL wife joining in the correspondence league this year?
I'm going to let her in.
So there'll be about 25 in there, which is mostly elites and then a few other duffers and ringers. So we're looking forward to it. And obviously, like in amongst the community, everybody knows City and Liverpool and United and Arsenal. It's the clubs like Norwich and the promoted clubs that we need the content and the eyes on the ground for. So we'll be really tapping you up for as much info as we can.
Excellent. Yeah. Look forward to speaking to everyone.
Fantastic. James, anything else to add?
No.
This is the first of our promoted clubs. So tomorrow is Villa?
No, Sheffield United,
And
FPL
then
Blade.
Villa. So,
and
yeah.
then Adam with Villa the day after.
Perfect. So do tune in tomorrow where we'll be talking to FPL Blade about the Blades, Sheffield United, and what we can expect from them. I know Ender Stevens is going to get some airtime for sure based on Twitter.
The way they play as well, overlapping centre halves.
Chris Wilder.
We can't wait to hear how that works.
Yeah, for sure. So do tune in. In the meantime, I hope you've been catching up with all of the Planet FPL 30 and 30. They've been really fascinating listens. Yeah, we've had Andy, Let's Talk FPL recently. We've got Hopcroft to look forward to in a couple of days. Plenty still going on. Anything else, James?
Cue music.
Say my name.
Ciao for now.
Cue music, man. Ciao.
There we go.
The Fantasy Football Show.